A new Mortal Kombat is coming out, and it features a ton of races. Not every fan of the series knows their biology and role in the overall story. So let's take a look at all the races in Mortal Kombat and find out who's the toughest of them all. When time just started ticking, a single entity and 6 elder gods existed in the universe. Most of the power belonged to this entity, and the gods were its slaves, used for nourishment. The elder gods didn't want to settle for this, knowing they'd eventually be consumed. So they teamed up and created 6 mighty weapons, the Kamidogu. With their help, the gods shattered the single entity into pieces that became worlds. 6 of them formed the main realms of existence in the new universe. The elder gods, realizing their responsibility, became the guardians of this order, establishing unshakable laws of creation. One of these laws became the law of Mortal Kombat. So, Mortal Kombat is a tournament between chosen heroes from conflicting worlds. Winning 10 tournaments in a row gives the stronger side the right to conquer the weaker one. In the latest installments, heroes from other universes have joined the conflict, like the Terminator T-800, for example. And do you know why the game's emblem features a dragon? Dragons are some of the strongest creatures in this universe. They hail from the Outworld, populated by martial beings. The strongest among them was the Dragon King Onaga, the first emperor of the Outworld. He united everyone and began to conquer other worlds. In his entourage were the Shokan half-humans, half-dragons. They stand out for their height, up to 250 centimeters, and weight, up to 1 ton. The Shokan are long-lived, with an average age of 2,000 years. They rarely use weapons as they have thick and sturdy skin. The Shokan are hot-tempered and arrogant, but if you prove your strength to them, they can become loyal allies. Some of them have the ability to control the elements. For example, Goro can control fire. It may seem like the Shokan are barbarians without a social hierarchy, but that's far from the truth. Shokan society is divided into 2 types, Draco and Tigrar. Draco are human-dragon hybrids, and they are more intellectual compared to Tigrars, who are a mix of human and tiger. That's why Dracos have more rights. For example, after Goro lost his arms in battle and was deemed unworthy, Shiva, not Kintaro, was placed on the throne. Now, it would seem, one could determine the strongest race in the universe. How can you fight against a tank like a Shokan? However, considering their tendency for shifting alliances, you could try to lure them to your side. And despite their physical power, they can be defeated using agility or surprise, as Noob Saibot did, killing Goro. Moreover, the Shokan have their own weaknesses. Tigrars can't swim, and the mighty Kintaro belongs to the lower Tigrar caste. Moreover, the Shokan have natural enemies, the Centaurs. New Shokan and Centaurs were recruited to serve Emperor Shao Kahn, but each applicant had to fight a representative of the other race. The fury with which Kintaro destroyed the Centaurs pleased Shao Kahn, and he made him his personal bodyguard. The Shokan even turned to Goro for help in getting rid of the Centaurs. Kitana, one of the Emperor's personal assassins, even tried to act as a diplomat between the Shokan and the Centaurs. The Centaurs are also important to the Emperor of the Outworld. One of them, Motaro, even held the post of leader of Shao Kahn's army for a while. Motaro, with his height of 262 centimeters and weight of 544 kilograms, possesses superpowers such as teleportation and fireballs, which he releases with his metallic tail. So we have Shokan with 4 arms and Centaurs with 4 legs. Both species possess incredible physical strength, ferocity, and endurance. Write in the comments your opinion on who you think is stronger. I'm really curious. Tarkatans are another inhabitant of the Outworld. There's a theory that Tarkata is a disease causing physical deformities. Baraka, once a respected trader from the Outworld, was infected with this disease and was banished to an island where he lived out his days among other sick individuals. But it was Baraka who united them all. There's another theory that Tarkatans are mutants. Shao Kahn, upon capturing Edenia, decided to spare the life of the local king's daughter and raise Princess Kitana as his own daughter. She worshipped Shao Kahn as a god until she learned the whole truth and rebelled against him. Then the emperor ordered the sorcerer Shang Tsung to create a clone of Kitana. The mixing of Tarkatan and Kitana's blood allowed Shang Tsung to create dozens of clones, but only one experiment was successful. This is how Melina appeared. Thus, in the Mortal Kombat universe, many creatures are the result of hybridization. Humans have been crossed with dragons, tigers, horses, and even cockroaches. There's a theory that Tarkatans are a mix of humans and demons. So let's talk about demons. The Netherrealm is typically portrayed as a place of punishment for sinners. However, the fallen elder god Shinnok, banished there, managed to overthrow Lucifer and start a war. The Netherrealm, in a sense, is a separate realm, similar to the Outworld. Many demons are native inhabitants of this world, and their demonic nature is often hidden by the magic of this realm. Some demons, such as Dramin and Moloch, have a unique appearance. Due to the vastness of the universe and the limited available information about demons, let's focus on the Tarkatan mutants. We've already looked at their origin. They are nomads, not tied to a specific habitat. Their distinctive features are blades growing from their arms and amazing resilience, like Baraka's. Recall, Kung Lao once sliced him in half, but after being stitched up with metal staples, Baraka was quite spry. Tarkatans are often depicted as savage and cruel, although they are capable of handling weapons. Baraka is an exception, being a more rational creature. Unlike the Shokan and Centaurs, Tarkatans rarely engage in diplomatic relations. Upon meeting a stranger, their first reaction is to attack. Their cultural features remain a mystery as they do not speak the common language of the Outworld. We know little about their daily life. Based on scenes from the 11th part of the game, it can be assumed that they keep livestock and prefer human meat. Despite their cruelty and strength, they were almost exterminated after the civil war in the Outworld. After Shao Kahn's death, Kotal, his replacement, began the persecution of the Tarkatans. As you've noticed, Shao Kahn prefers to have the most dangerous races under his command, reminiscent of Sauron with his orcs. In the Outworld, there's another race similar to goblins, the Naknada. They serve Shao Kahn, collecting taxes. Their greed for gold is reflected in the character collector. They also work as slaves, constructing various buildings. Naknada do not have traditional names, instead using the names of their professions. Despite their status, they are also dangerous fighters. The Naknada, with their 3 pairs of arms, can pose a serious threat. After all, in the world of Mortal Kombat, more means better. In battle, the collector uses various grabs. While one pair of hands holds the opponent, the second delivers blows, and the third, smaller in size, manipulates various instruments. Their backpacks contain many dangerous items, including a hypnotic paralyzer. Now let's return to the universe's history. At the beginning of the story, I mentioned dragons, Shokan, human-dragon hybrids, and Emperor Onaga. However, later in the plot, Shao Kahn appeared. Where does this complicated history come from? Shao Kahn was chosen as the defender of the Outworld by the Elder Gods, but he betrayed them and joined the Conquerors. Onaga, trusting Shao Kahn, was unaware of his ambitions. At the same time, Shao Kahn gathered allies around himself and, taking advantage of Onaga's moment of weakness, poisoned him. His ambitions were much greater than Onaga suspected. After conquering many worlds, his attention was drawn to Edenia, the largest realm in the universe. Edenia was the opposite of the Outworld, resembling the Garden of Eden. The Edenians fed on the fruits of the massive Tree of Life, which slowed their aging and gave them immunity to diseases. For example, Kitana was 10,000 years old, but she was considered young. It is believed that the longevity and strength of the Edenians come from their divine origin. However, even such powerful beings could not withstand Shao Kahn's army. So, despite their divine roots and magical abilities, the Edenians were not prepared for the invasion. Yes, they possessed great martial arts, like Kitana with her blade fans, or Sindel with her ability to levitate and manipulate sound. But their long period of peace made them vulnerable to the army of the Outworld. Next, Shao Kahn turned his attention to Viternus, home to a race of vampires. Mortal Kombat's vampires fit the classic image: pale skin, fangs, wings. They feed on blood, but unlike traditional vampires, they are not afraid of starlight, only sunlight. although the Sun is the same star as millions of others. Why is that? Unfortunately, there is no answer. This flaw, along with others, does not make them the dominant race. In the Mortal Kombat universe, the only known representative of this race is Nitara, although rumors suggest that there may be more in the future. Interestingly, in Mortal Kombat, there is a hint at a connection between vampires and the Saurians, to which Reptile and Chameleon belong. Nitara, it seems, knew a lot about the Saurians. This race, also known as Zeterans or Raptors, originally came from the Earth realm. However, the Great War between the gods forced them to leave Earth and take refuge in the world of Zetera, which became their new home. So, after some time, Zetera was destroyed. Shao Kahn captured this world, incorporating it into his empire. Most of the Zeterans were annihilated or taken into slavery. Some, like Reptile, became personal assassins for Shao Kahn. Reptile served the Emperor, hoping for the revival of his race. Despite his allegiance to villains, his motivation was clear. He wanted to resurrect his kin. This reptilian humanoid could become invisible and exude acid. However, without his tribe, he began to degrade, becoming more primitive. The Cryomancers, or Cryomancers, also fell victim to Shao Kahn. This race, possessing the ability to control ice, was almost completely destroyed. Only a few descendants of this race are known, such as Sub-Zero and Frost. They can freeze opponents, create weapons from ice, and heal their wounds. The Osh-Tech, resembling the Aztecs, decided to avoid extermination by submitting to Shao Kahn. These skilled warriors and hunters lived in a world rich in gold. They drew strength from sunlight, but became weak without it. They could use solar rays in battle, and summon totems for various bonuses. Kotal Khan, one of their leaders, was a massive warrior with green skin. So, after conquering the realm of the Osh-Tech, Shao Kahn continued to expand his empire. But Kotal Khan, trained in the Earth realm, and seeing the suffering of his people, could not stand aside. He served Shao Kahn, but after his death, Kotal Khan understood that Melina Shao Kahn's daughter, despite her claims to the throne, could not be a worthy ruler of the Outworld. His decision to overthrow her and take power into his own hands was motivated not only by personal animosity, but also by a desire for a better future for his people. The chitin, with their unique biology and hive mind mentality, indeed represent an interesting addition to the world of Mortal Kombat. Their disorganization and lack of unified leadership undoubtedly made them vulnerable to Shao Kahn's conquests. However, their natural abilities, such as toxic blood, regenerative capabilities, and powerful ovipositors, make them formidable opponents on the battlefield. The most famous chitin, of course, is D'Vorah. She became the only one of her race to swear allegiance to Shao Kahn and became his advisor. She, of course, had her motives, and when Shao Kahn became too overconfident, she planned to betray him. The game does not explicitly state this, but it seems that D'Vorah especially hates the Tarkatans. In story mode, she not only defeats Baraka, but also rips out his brain. Later, when Kotal Khan, being the Emperor, suppresses Melina's uprising, he entrusts D'Vorah to deal with her. Without wasting time, D'Vorah kissed Melina, filling her mouth with her carnivorous bugs, which began to devour the Tarkatan from the inside. Perhaps the only society that can compare with the madness of the chitin is the hierarchy, or lack thereof, in two realms, the realm of chaos and the realm of order. Imagine a world where chaos is a religion. This is not a post-apocalyptic world in the style of Mad Max. The inhabitants of this world value absolute freedom so much that they even speak backwards, just to not conform to standards. They also apparently worship water because of its changeability and because there is a lot of water in their world. It's no surprise that the realm of chaos has no allies, although they do sympathize with the emperors of the outer world because they bring even more chaos to the world. They have no allies, but there is a main enemy, the realm of order, or Sado. At first glance, it seems that orderly people should live in the realm of order, but this is far from the case. Because of strict laws and upbringing, the residents of Sado are almost indistinguishable from the residents of the realm of chaos. They also react to what is happening around with misunderstanding and confusion. Everything is governed by the Senate, and people live under strict laws, which are monitored by elite warriors. If you violate even the smallest of them, for example, throw a cigarette butt on the floor, it can lead to a long prison sentence. Sado guards believe that freedom is dangerous. It leads to anarchy, anarchy leads to chaos, and chaos leads to suffering. Despite the fact that many Sedans feel safe, some believe that the laws are too strict. And there is a good example of this. One of the main characters of the realm of chaos, Havoc, a priest of chaos and anarchist. He is a native of the realm of order, which shows how tired the residents of this world are of strict laws. But we are searching for the strongest race, and there is more to tell about that. So it's time to return to Earth, which also found its place in the Mortal Kombat universe. As I said, Shao Kahn's ambitions grew with each new conquered world. Several millennia have passed since his victory over Edenia, and the Earth realm was next in line. It all started with the Mortal Kombat tournament, where Earth's best fighters participated. Shao Kahn thought it would be as easy as with Edenia, but he was wrong. Although initially everything went smoothly, and he didn't even need his warriors. He recruited a traitor from Earth, a sorcerer named Shang Tsung, who won 9 out of 10 tournaments for him. But at the last moment, Raiden, the defender of the Earth realm, intervened. Creating the secret society of the White Lotus and gathering the best fighters from all over the world, he prepared them for the last tournament. And in the end, at the 10th tournament, Kung Lao defeated Shang Tsung. In a personal duel, Kung Lao won the tournament and became the champion, plunging Shao Kahn and all his army into powerless rage. Although it is customary to kill your opponents in the Mortal Kombat tournament, Kung Lao brought a drop of mercy to the arena and spared the sorcerer. And it's really cool that it was the Earthlings who proved themselves where others could not. And not only did Shao Kahn try to capture Earth, but also, as I already mentioned, the Elder God Shinnok. And all his attempts also ended in failure. So, why is Earth so difficult to conquer? Earthlings are not descendants of gods with long lives. They do not have amazing resilience or other outstanding features, like the other races we have talked about today. However, to compensate for their limited magical and physical abilities, Earthlings use the achievements of science. For example, the Outer World Investigation Agency used a built portal for traveling between worlds and high-tech weapons in battle. Also, Earthlings have perseverance. The Edenians had combat experience, but did not strive for battles, while humans were ready to fight. And they spent 50 years preparing the perfect fighter. In fact, Earthlings have many allies, including Eden. For example, Dagon, the Edenian demigod and son of the keeper of the Edenian kingdom, created the Red Dragon clan, which was engaged in training disciplined warriors on Earth. But due to the strict hierarchy in the clan, dissatisfied fighters created a new clan, Black Dragon, which became a vicious gang of mercenaries. So, who is the most powerful in Mortal Kombat? The answer is simple: humans. They are versatile, adaptive, and resourceful. Although they may not possess the physical strength of some creatures, their intellect and ability to adapt make them invincible.